Captain Jake Morrison walked through the long metal halls of the Galactic Forum station. His boots made soft sounds on the polished floor as he moved past windows that showed the dark space outside. Stars twinkled like tiny diamonds against the black sky. He had walked these same halls for 5 years now, but today felt different. Today felt heavy. The Forum station was huge. It was bigger than any city on Earth. Over 400 different alien species lived and worked here. They came from all corners of the galaxy to talk, to trade, and to solve problems together. At least that was supposed to be the idea. Jake stopped at a viewing window and looked out at the planet below. Kepler 442b spun slowly, its blue and green surface peaceful and quiet. The planet had no intelligent life, which made it perfect. As a neutral meeting place, no one could claim it belonged to them. "Captain Morrison?" A voice called behind him. Jake turned around. Ambassador Lisa Carter walked toward him. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had been Earth's main voice at the Forum for 10 years. Jake could see the stress lines on her face, getting deeper each day. "The morning session starts in 20 minutes, Lisa said. "Are you ready for this?" Jake nodded. "As ready as anyone can be for watching our species get insulted again." Lisa sighed. "Jake, we have to stay professional. Getting angry won't help." "Professional?" Jake's voice got louder. "Lisa, they want to put chains on us. They want to treat us like children who can't take care of themselves. How are we supposed to stay professional about that?" Lisa looked around to make sure no aliens were listening. The hall was empty except for them. "I know it's hard, but if we lose our temper, we prove their point about humans being too aggressive." Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Aggressive? We've spent 60 years helping everyone else solve their problems. We've stopped wars. We've shared our technology. We've saved lives. And they call us aggressive?" They started walking toward the main assembly hall. Other beings moved through the halls around them. Jake saw a tall, thin Altarian with blue skin and 4 arms. The alien nodded politely at them. At least the Altarians still treated humans with respect. But then Jake saw a group of Zephyrians standing near a food court. They were tall and proud, with golden skin that seemed to glow under the lights. When they saw Jake and Lisa, they whispered to each other and laughed. One of them pointed at the humans and said something in their language that made the others laugh harder. "Ignore them," Lisa said quietly. "That's all we ever do," Jake replied. "We ignore insults. We ignore lies. We ignore the fact that they're enslaving entire planets while we sit here and smile." They reached the assembly hall doors. The doors were massive, made from some kind of white stone that came from the Centauri system. Guards from different species stood on both sides. They all carried weapons that could kill a human in seconds. Inside the hall, thousands of beings sat in seats that rose up like a giant bowl. Each species had their own section. The human section was small compared to most others. Earth only had one vote, the same as everyone else, even though humans had colonies on over 200 worlds now. Jake and Lisa took their seats. Ben Rodriguez was already there. Ben was their security chief, a big man with dark hair and careful eyes. He watched everything and everyone. "Any changes to the motion?" Jake asked. Ben shook his head. "It's still the same. The Vorthan Collective wants the Forum to declare humans a primitive, aggressive species that needs supervision from more advanced civilizations." "Advanced," Lisa said with disgust. "The Vorthans still use slavery. They call it cultural integration, but it's slavery. How does that make them advanced?" The lights in the hall dimmed. High Chancellor Morden walked to the center speaking area. He was a Centauri, tall and thin with pale skin and large black eyes. His voice carried clearly through the hall's sound system. "The Forum will now hear the motion presented by the Vorthan Collective," Morden announced. A Vorthan delegate stood up. He was shorter than most of his species, but his voice was strong and clear. "The Vorthan Collective believes that humanity has shown dangerous tendencies. They expand too quickly. They question too much. They interfere in matters that do not concern them." Jake felt his hands make fists. Lisa put her hand on his arm to calm him. The Vorthan continued. Humans claim to help, but they force their ideas on others. They say they want peace, but they build weapons. They say they respect other cultures, but they judge our traditions. What traditions? Jake whispered angrily. Slavery? Murder? Genocide? For the safety of the galaxy, the Vorthan said, humans must accept guidance from species with more wisdom and experience. This is not punishment. This is protection. Other delegates began to speak. Some supported the Vorthans. Others opposed them. The Altarians spoke strongly for humanity. So did a few smaller species that humans had helped in the past. But Jake could count votes. He had been watching politics here for 5 years. The big, powerful species had more influence. They could pressure smaller species to vote their way. Money talked. Fear talked louder. Hours passed. The debate went on and on. Jake heard the same lies repeated over and over. Humans were too aggressive. Humans were too proud. Humans didn't understand their place in the galaxy. Finally, the vote came. The numbers appeared on the big screen at the front of the hall. The motion passed by 12 votes. The hall erupted in noise. Some species cheered. Others shouted in anger. The Altarians walked out in protest. Lisa stood up slowly. She walked to the speaking area. The hall grew quiet. 60 years ago, Lisa began, humanity joined this forum with hope in our hearts. We believed in justice. We believed in equality. We believed that all intelligent life deserved respect. Her voice carried clearly through the silent hall. We were wrong. Lisa looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of delegates from hundreds of worlds. We offered our friendship. You demanded our submission. We shared our knowledge. You called us primitive. We helped solve your conflicts. You called us interfering. We respected your cultures. You ignored our rights. Jake felt pride growing in his chest. Lisa's voice was getting stronger. Today, you have told humanity that we are not your equals. You have told us that we need masters to guide us. Very well. If we are not welcome as partners, we will not remain as subjects. Lisa paused. The hall was completely silent now. Humanity hereby withdraws from the Galactic Forum. Effective immediately, all human personnel will leave Forum space. All human technology will be removed from Forum installations. All human agreements and treaties are void. She looked directly at the Vorthan delegate who had started this whole mess. You wanted to teach us our place in the galaxy. Thank you for the lesson. Our place is not here. Lisa turned and walked toward the exit. Jake and Ben followed her. Behind them, the hall exploded into chaos. Aliens shouted and argued. Some demanded that humans be forced to stay. Others celebrated their departure. But Jake didn't look back. He was done looking back. They had 68 hours to pack up 60 years of human presence at the Forum. It would be the busiest 3 days of their lives, and the beginning of the galaxy's worst nightmare. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the control room of the USS Columbia, watching as human ships began leaving Forum space. The big viewing screen showed dozens of Earth vessels moving away from the massive station. Some were small research ships. Others were huge cargo haulers. All of them were going home. Sir, we have confirmation from the Henderson and the Pacific, Lieutenant Danny Walsh said from his station. They're ready to depart on your signal. Jake nodded. Tell all ships to begin departure sequence, nice and slow, no sudden moves. He didn't want to give the aliens any excuse to claim humans were being aggressive. Even now, even after everything, Jake wanted to leave with dignity. Amy Rodriguez, the ship's engineer, came up beside him. She was Ben's sister and just as tough as he was. All human tech is disconnected from the station's main systems, she reported. The power grid, communication arrays, and defense networks are running on their backup systems now. Good work, Jake said. How long before those backups fail? Amy smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. The aliens never bothered to learn how. Our systems worked, they just used them. Without maintenance, the power grid will start having problems in about 2 weeks. The communication system will last maybe a month. The defense grid? She shrugged. Maybe 3 days if they're lucky. Through the viewing screen, Jake could see alien ships moving around the Forum station. Most of them seemed confused. They were flying in circles, like they didn't know what to do. "Sir," Danny called out. "We're getting messages from alien commanders. They want to know why we're leaving so suddenly." "Tell them to ask their governments," Jake said. "We're just following orders." On the other side of the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Commander Pete Johnson was leading the evacuation of the human research station near the Vega system. His team had spent 8 years studying alien diseases and finding cures. They had saved millions of alien lives. "Are we really just going to leave all our research behind?" Dr. Nancy Foster asked. She was Pete's chief scientist and had worked on cures for 17 different alien plagues. "We're taking our research with us," Pete said, "but we're not leaving copies for them to use." Nancy looked sad. "There are alien children who will die without the medicines we developed." Pete felt bad too, but he had his orders. "Those children's governments voted to treat us like primitives. If we're too primitive to be trusted with our own freedom, maybe we're too primitive to develop medicines too." Back at the Forum Station, alien delegates were starting to panic. Ambassador Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire stood in the emergency council session, his golden skin darker than usual with anger. "This is ridiculous," he said to the other delegates. "They're acting like children throwing a fit. They'll be back in a week when they realize how much they need us." But Chancellor Morden looked worried. He had been reading reports from all over the station. "The humans have removed more technology than we realized. The environmental systems are already showing stress. The artificial gravity generators are running on backup power. So we fix them," Vextar said. "How hard can it be?" Morden showed him a data pad. "Our engineers have been trying to understand the human modifications for the past 6 hours. They say it will take months to figure out how everything works together." On Earth, President Ryan Hayes sat in his office reading reports from around the galaxy. Every human colony, research station, and diplomatic post was packing up and coming home. It was the largest movement of human ships in history. His aide, Colonel Mark Thompson, brought him another report. "Sir, the Altarians are asking if we'll reconsider. They say they had nothing to do with the vote." Ryan shook his head. "The Altarians are good people, Mark, but they couldn't stop this vote even though they tried. If our friends can't protect us in the Forum, then the Forum isn't worth staying in. What about the trade agreements, the scientific exchanges, the defensive pacts?" "All canceled," Ryan said firmly. "If we're too primitive to govern ourselves, then we're too primitive to be trusted with anything else." Meanwhile, Commander Amy Walsh was leading a team of human technicians through the Forum Station's lower levels. They were removing every piece of human-built equipment they could find. Power converters, computer processors, sensor arrays, communication relays, everything had to go. "Ma'am," Sergeant Bill Carter called out. "The Centauri engineers are asking why we're taking the backup life support processors." Amy didn't stop working. "Because we built them, they're ours. But without these, the station can only support about half its current population." Amy finally looked up. "Then I guess they'll have to figure out how to build their own, won't they?" The sergeant looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, people could die." Amy's face went hard. "Tell me, Sergeant, how many humans died on Kepler-7 when the Zephyrians culturally integrated that colony? How many humans died on the Vorthon slave ships? Did the Forum care then?" The sergeant was quiet. "We tried to be the good guys," Amy continued. "We tried to help everyone. They told us we were too aggressive, too interfering, too primitive. Fine. Let them handle their own problems now." Back on the Columbia, Jake was getting reports from human commanders all over the galaxy. The news was the same everywhere. Humans were leaving. All human technology was being removed. All cooperation was ending. "Sir," Danny said, "we're getting some angry messages from alien governments. They're demanding we leave our technology behind." Jake laughed. "Demanding? They just voted that we're too primitive to make our own decisions, but now they want to keep our technology? Tell them no. Some of them are threatening to use force to stop us." Jake's expression went cold. "Tell them that would be an act of war, and remind them that they just declared us an aggressive species. Do they really want to find out how aggressive we can be?" The truth was, no alien government wanted to test human military might. Humans had never been conquered. Every time aliens had tried to attack human colonies, the humans had won, usually very quickly and very decisively. Dr. Carl Stevens was busy at the Galactic Science Center. He was downloading decades of human research from the shared databases. Medical breakthroughs, engineering advances, energy solutions, all of it was coming with him. Dr. Stevens, an alien scientist, called out, "Surely you're not taking all of the cancer research? That belongs to everyone." Carl looked at the alien, a Rigellian with blue fur and large eyes. "Dr. Mortek, this research was done by human scientists, using human methods. If humans are too primitive to be trusted with political decisions, maybe our science isn't advanced enough for civilized species either. But the children with cancer should ask their governments why they voted to insult the people trying to save them," Carl said coldly. As human ships continued to leave forum space, the aliens were beginning to understand what they had lost. The humans hadn't just been diplomats and traders. They had been the ones who kept things working. They had been the ones who solved problems everyone else gave up on. The forum station's lights flickered for the first time in 60 years. In the cargo bays, alien workers realized they didn't know how to operate the loading systems that humans had installed. In the medical centers, doctors stared at equipment they couldn't understand without human technicians to help them. "This is temporary," Vextar insisted in another emergency meeting. "They need us more than we need them." But even as he said it, reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Human trade routes were shutting down. Human patrol ships were returning to Earth space. Human early warning sensors were going offline. For 60 years, humans had been quietly holding the galaxy together. Now they were gone. And the aliens were about to learn what that really meant. 2 weeks had passed since the last human ship left forum space. The silence was getting louder each day. Commander Susan Miller sat in her small office on the Altarian homeworld. She was Earth's last official representative in the galaxy, and, only because the Altarians had begged her to stay, her job now was simple: say no to everyone who wanted human help. Her communication device buzzed constantly. Messages came from every corner of the galaxy. Trade officials asking why human cargo ships weren't showing up. Scientists begging for access to human research. Military commanders wanting to know why human patrol routes were empty. Susan deleted most messages without reading them, but some she had to answer. "Commander Miller," came a desperate voice through her speaker. It was Admiral Cathera of the Altarian fleet. "Please, we need to speak with Earth about the Rigel situation." Susan picked up the communication device. "Admiral, you know my orders. Earth is not involved in galactic affairs anymore." "But the Rigel system is falling apart," Cathara said. "Without human trade routes, they can't get food to their outer colonies. People are starving." "Then maybe they should have thought about that before voting to restrict human freedom," Susan replied coldly. "Commander, please. The Altarian government voted against that motion. We tried to protect humanity's interests." Susan sighed. She liked the Altarians. They were good people who had always treated humans fairly. But her orders were clear. "Admiral, I'm sorry, but Earth's position is firm. We offered partnership. The galaxy chose supervision instead. Now the galaxy can handle its own problems." Across the galaxy, the consequences of human withdrawal were spreading like a virus. On the forum station, the main power grid had failed 3 times in 2 days. Each time, alien engineers managed to get it working again, but barely. Chief Engineer Zordan, a Centauri with 30 years of experience, stared at the human-designed power systems with confusion. "These connections make no sense," he told his team. "Why would they route power through 17 different backup systems?" His assistant, a younger Centauri named Veltar, looked at the diagnostic readings. "Sir, maybe because it prevents total system failure? Look, even when the main grid goes down, essential systems stay online." "But it's so complicated," Zordan complained. "Why not just use one big power source?" "Because if that one source fails, everyone dies," Veltar said quietly. The truth was becoming clear. Human engineering seemed overly complex because humans planned for every possible disaster. They built systems that could survive multiple failures. Other species built systems that worked perfectly until they didn't work at all. On Earth, President Ryan Hayes was reading daily reports about galactic chaos. Trade wars were breaking out as shipping routes collapsed. 3 different conflicts had started because diplomatic meetings fell apart without human mediators. His secretary, Jane Davis, brought him another stack of messages. "Sir, these are from the Vorthon Collective. They're offering to apologize if we return to the forum." Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Apologize? They wanted to put chains on us, and now they want to apologize? What should I tell them? Tell them that apologies are meaningless. They showed us who they really are. We believe them. Jane hesitated. "Sir, some of our own people are asking if we should reconsider. The economic impact on human colonies has been significant." Ryan's face went serious. "Jane, some things are more important than money. Our dignity is one of them. Our freedom is another. We'll find new trade partners. We'll build new relationships. But we won't go back to being treated like children." Meanwhile, the Galactic Communication Network was breaking down. The human-designed translation protocols were failing one by one. Without human linguists to maintain them, conversations between different species were becoming impossible. Ambassador Mortek of Rigel was trying to negotiate a food shipment with the Zephyrian Empire. But the translation system kept turning, his polite requests into demands and insults. "We humbly request assistance with feeding our colonies," Mortek said carefully. The translator made it sound like, "You will give us food or face consequences." The Zephyrian delegate, already angry about his own problems, stood up and stormed out of the meeting. Dr. Helen Parker, humanity's former chief xenobiologist, was working in her new laboratory on Mars. She was studying samples that human exploration teams had brought back from the galaxy's outer rim. What she found made her blood run cold. "Computer analyzed the bacterial samples from grid section 7 Alpha, she said. The computer's voice was calm and clear. Analysis complete. The samples contain 17 different types of aggressive microorganisms. 12 are capable of surviving in oxygen-based atmospheres. 8 can reproduce in temperatures suitable for most galactic species." Helen sat back in her chair. She had been tracking these organisms for years, trying to warn the galactic community about the threat they posed. But the forum's scientific council had dismissed her research as human paranoia. Now, without human early warning systems, these deadly organisms were spreading unchecked through space. Soon they would reach populated systems. Helen picked up her communication device to warn someone, then put it down again. The galaxy had made its choice. They didn't want human interference in their affairs. On the forum station, things were getting worse every day. The artificial gravity generators were failing in sections throughout the station. Alien delegates floated helplessly through corridors, bumping into walls and each other. "This is unacceptable," High Chancellor Morden declared at an emergency meeting. "We need to fix these systems immediately." "We're trying," Chief Engineer Zordon reported, "but the human modifications are integrated into everything. We can't separate their technology from ours without rebuilding the entire station, then rebuild it. Sir, that would take years, and we don't have the technical knowledge to do it without human help. Then get human help. Sir, the humans won't answer our calls." The room fell silent. The reality was sinking in. They had driven away the only people who understood how their own station worked, but the worst was yet to come. In the outer rim, human sensor stations had gone dark. These stations had been humanity's gift to the galaxy, an early warning system that watched for dangers from deep space. For 60 years, these sensors had detected asteroids on collision courses with inhabited worlds. They had spotted solar flares before they could damage communication satellites. They had tracked the movement of dangerous space phenomena that could destroy entire systems. Now the sensors were offline. The galaxy was flying blind through a universe full of hazards. Captain Alex Turner of the exploration vessel New Horizon was patrolling the edge of human space when his sensors detected something unusual. Energy signatures were moving toward the galaxy from the deep void. They were massive and getting closer. "Analysis complete, Captain," his science officer reported. "The signatures match theoretical profiles for self-replicating machine intelligences. They appear to be following a direct course toward the galactic core." Alex felt ice form in his stomach. He had read about these things in classified human intelligence reports. The Void Hunters, machine minds that consumed entire civilizations and turned them into more machines. He opened a communication channel to Earth Command. "Priority Alpha message for Admiral Hayes. We have confirmed detection of Void Hunter scout elements approaching galactic space. Estimated time to first contact with Outer Rim colonies, 6 months. The response came back quickly. "Understood, New Horizon. Return to Earth space immediately. Do not attempt to warn non-human populations. Earth's protection extends only to human settlements." Alex stared at the message. Somewhere out there, billions of alien beings were about to face an enemy they didn't know existed, and Earth was going to let it happen. But Alex remembered the vote in the forum. He remembered the insults and the contempt. He remembered being called primitive and aggressive. "Acknowledged, Earth Command," he replied, returning to human space. As the New Horizon turned toward home, Alex took one last look at the galaxy beyond human borders. In 6 months, much of it would be nothing but scrap metal and empty space. Aliens had wanted humans to mind their own business. Now they were about to get their wish. 3 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy was burning. Admiral Kate Foster stood on the bridge of the USS Enterprise, watching the chaos unfold through her ship's long-range sensors. The human vessel hung in space at the edge of Earth's expanded territory, far from the violence consuming the rest of the galaxy. "Status report," Kate ordered. Lieutenant Tony Blake looked up from his station. "The Andromedian War has spread to 12 systems. The Vorthan Collective is fighting rebellions on 15 worlds. The Zephyrian Empire just lost 3 entire fleets to something they're calling technical failures." Kate nodded grimly. Without human mediators, every small disagreement had become a war. Without human engineers, alien ships were breaking down in the middle of battles. Without human early warning systems, entire fleets were flying into asteroid fields and solar storms. "Any requests for assistance?" Kate asked. "Hundreds," Tony replied. "But Command's orders are clear. We observe only." Kate felt a familiar weight in her chest. She had been a peacekeeper for 20 years. Watching civilizations destroy themselves went against every instinct she had. But Earth's position was firm. The galaxy had chosen to reject human partnership. Now they would face the consequences alone. On the forum station, High Chancellor, Morden was dealing with his own crisis. Half the station's population had already evacuated. The remaining aliens lived in constant fear as critical systems failed every day. How long before life support fails completely? Morden asked his chief engineer. Engineer Zordan looked exhausted. He hadn't slept in 3 days. Maybe 2 weeks. The human-designed backup systems are still working, but we don't know how to maintain them. When they fail forever. And the communication network? We've lost contact with 60% of member worlds. The translation protocols are completely broken. Half the messages we receive are meaningless noise. Morden slumped in his chair. The Great Galactic Forum, which had maintained peace for 3 centuries, was dying. And it was dying because they had insulted the one species capable of keeping it alive. Deep in space, Captain Pete Johnson commanded a human research vessel that was tracking the spread of the bacterial plague Dr. Helen Parker had discovered. The deadly organisms were moving from system to system, carried by alien ships that had no idea what they were spreading. "Captain," his science officer reported, "the plague has reached the Rigel system. Infection rate is accelerating. We estimate total population loss within 6 months." Pete closed his eyes. Rigel had a population of 12 billion. He had worked with many Rigelian scientists over the years. They were peaceful people who had always been kind to humans. "Sir," another officer said quietly, "we could synthesize a cure. Dr. Parker's research is complete. We could save them." Pete looked at the man. "Lieutenant, what were our orders?" No interference in alien affairs, sir. Then we follow our orders. But Pete's heart was breaking. He opened a secure channel to Earth Command. Admiral Hayes, this is Captain Johnson, requesting permission to provide humanitarian aid to the Rigel system. The response came back within minutes. Request denied, Captain. Earth's resources are reserved for human protection only. Pete stared at the message. Part of him understood. Earth had tried to help for 60 years, only to be called primitive and aggressive. Why should they help people who had voted to restrict human freedom? But another part of him remembered the Rigelian children he had met at scientific conferences. Bright, curious kids who dreamed of exploring the stars. Soon, they would all be dead. On Earth, President Ryan Hayes was reading intelligence reports in his private office. The news got worse every day. The Vorthan Collective was collapsing as enslaved species rebelled. The Zephyrian Empire was fighting civil wars on a dozen worlds. Even the peaceful Centauri Alliance was struggling to maintain order. His aide, Colonel Mark Thompson, brought him another report. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the galactic void. Our deep space sensors show multiple large objects moving toward inhabited systems. Ryan looked up sharply. The Void Hunters? That's what our analysis suggests. Sir, they'll reach the Outer Rim colonies in approximately 3 months. Ryan felt cold. The Void Hunters were humanity's worst nightmare, self-replicating machines that consumed entire civilizations and turned them into more weapons. Earth's intelligence services had been tracking them for decades, always hoping they would turn away from the galaxy. How many alien worlds are in their path? Mark checked his datapad. Approximately 2,000 inhabited systems, sir. Total population around 800 billion. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. 800 billion lives. Men, women, and children who had no idea what was coming for them. Sir, Mark said carefully, we could warn them. Give them time to prepare. Colonel, what did the galaxy tell us when we offered our help? Mark's voice was quiet. That we were too primitive to be trusted. And when we tried to share our intelligence about external threats, they called it human paranoia. Ryan stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see the lights of New Geneva, Earth's capital city. Beyond that, the lights of human colonies stretched across dozens of star systems. All of them were protected by the early warning networks and defense systems that aliens had scorned. The galaxy made its choice, Colonel. They wanted us to mind our own business. Now we're minding our own business. But even as he said it, Ryan felt the weight of those 800 billion lives pressing down on him. In the Altarian system, Admiral Cathara was trying to hold her government together. The Altarians had been humanity's closest allies, but even they were struggling without human support. Admiral, her aide reported, we've lost contact with our outer colonies. The communication relays are failing faster than we can repair them. Cathara felt frustrated. The Altarians had voted against the motion to restrict humanity. They had tried to protect their human friends, but it hadn't mattered. When the humans left, they had left everyone behind. Any word from Commander Miller? Cathara asked. She's still on the homeworld, but she won't respond to official communications. Her orders are to have no contact with alien governments. Cathara understood. The humans weren't angry at the Altarians specifically, but they couldn't make exceptions. If they helped the Altarians, every other species would demand the same treatment. Across the galaxy, the pattern was the same. Alien civilizations were discovering how much they had depended on human expertise. Trade routes that humans had established were falling apart. Diplomatic agreements that humans had negotiated were breaking down. Scientific research that humans had led was grinding to a halt. But the worst discovery was yet to come. Dr. Helen Parker's research had identified 17 different existential threats to galactic civilization. The bacterial plague was just one of them. There were rogue asteroids on collision courses with inhabited worlds, solar storms that could destroy entire communication networks, gravitational anomalies that could tear apart star systems. For 60 years, humans had been quietly tracking and managing these threats. They had deflected asteroids, predicted solar storms, and monitored dangerous phenomena. They had been the galaxy's invisible guardians. protecting civilizations that didn't even know they needed protection. Now the Guardians were gone, and the threats were still coming. Captain Alex Turner's ship, the New Horizon, detected the first Void Hunter scout ships entering galactic space. They were still months away from populated systems, but their intent was clear. They were scanning, cataloging, and preparing for a full-scale invasion. "Captain," his communications officer said, "we're receiving desperate signals from the outer rim. They're detecting strange energy signatures and asking for help analyzing them." Alex looked at the signals. The aliens had no idea what they were looking at. They thought the Void Hunters might be some kind of natural phenomenon. "Sir, should we respond?" Alex remembered the vote in the forum. He remembered the insults and the contempt. He remembered being called primitive. "No response," he said quietly. "We have our orders." As the New Horizon turned away from the desperate signals, Alex knew he was watching the beginning of the end. The Void Hunters were coming, and the galaxy had no idea how to stop them. Though aliens had wanted humans to stay in their place. Soon they would learn what that place had really been. 6 months after humanity abandoned the forum, the screaming began. Captain Alex Turner watched through his ship's sensors as the first Void Hunter fleet reached the Outer Rim colonies. The machine ships were massive, each one the size of a small moon. They moved through space like silver death, consuming everything in their path. "Captain," his sensor operator said quietly, "the Rigel outer colonies are gone. Complete consumption in less than 4 hours." Alex felt sick. Rigel had been one of the first systems to welcome humans into the galaxy. Now it was being turned into raw materials for more Void Hunter ships. "Any distress calls?" Alex asked. "Hundreds, sir. They're begging anyone to help them. They don't understand what they're fighting." Alex closed his eyes. The aliens had no idea what Void Hunters were. They had dismissed human intelligence reports as paranoia. Now they were facing an enemy they couldn't comprehend. "Orders from Earth Command, sir," the communications officer reported. "All human ships are to maintain defensive positions around human colonies only. No interference with alien conflicts." Alex nodded. It was the right decision. Earth had tried to warn the galaxy for decades. The warnings had been ignored. Now the galaxy would face the consequences. On the forum station, chaos ruled. Half the station was dark and cold. The life support systems had finally failed completely in 3 sections. Thousands of aliens had died in the past week alone. Hi. Chancellor Morden sat in his emergency command center, surrounded by the few advisors who hadn't fled. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy, each one worse than the last. "The Void Hunters have consumed 17 systems," his aide reported. "They're building new ships from the captured materials. Our analysts estimate their fleet size has tripled." Morden felt hollow inside. "What about our defenses? Our weapons can't penetrate their shields. Our ships break apart when they get too close. It's like they know how to counter everything we have." But Morden knew the truth. The Void Hunters didn't need to learn about alien defenses. They had fought these same aliens before, thousands of years ago. The only reason the galaxy had survived was because humans had been watching the deep void, ready to warn everyone about incoming threats. Now the Watchers were gone. "Sir," another aide said desperately, "we're receiving a message from the Zephyrian Empire. They're offering to surrender their entire territory to humanity if Earth will help fight the Void Hunters." Morden laughed bitterly. The proud Zephyrians, who had called humans primitive just months ago, were now begging for human protection. "Send a reply," Morden said. "Tell them to contact Earth directly. The Forum has no authority over humanity anymore." On Earth, President Ryan Hayes was dealing with the same desperate messages. Every surviving alien government was offering everything they had in exchange for human help. Entire star systems, advanced technology, political submission, anything to get Earth's protection. His secretary, Jane Davis, brought him another stack of surrender offers. "Sir, the Centauri Alliance is offering to make humanity the ruling species of the galaxy if we'll save them from the Void Hunters." Ryan looked at the offers without emotion. 6 months ago, these same governments had voted to restrict human freedom. They had called humans too primitive to govern themselves. Now they wanted humans to govern everyone. "What's our official response?" Jane asked. "The same as always," Ryan said. "Earth's protection extends only to human settlements. All other requests for assistance are denied." Jane hesitated. "Sir, the casualty reports are getting worse. Entire species are being wiped out. The Regellians are down to their last billion people." Ryan felt the weight of those deaths, but his resolve didn't waver. "Jane, what did the Rigellians do when the Vorthons enslaved the colonies on Kepler 7? What did they do when the Zephyrians committed genocide on Tau Ceti? They did nothing. They voted with the majority and stayed quiet." "But sir, these are innocent people. So were the humans who died while the galaxy watched and did nothing," Ryan replied coldly. "The galaxy taught us that the strong take what they want and the weak suffer what they must. Now they're learning what it means to be weak." In deep space, Admiral Kate Foster's fleet was holding the line at the edge of human territory. Her ships were arranged in a defensive formation around the outer human colonies. Behind them, Earth space was protected by the most advanced warning systems and defensive networks in the galaxy. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "Void Hunter scouts are probing our perimeter. They seem to be testing our defenses." Kate smiled grimly. "Let them test. They're about to learn why humans were considered so paranoid about security." The Void Hunters had consumed dozens of alien civilizations, but they had never faced human defenses. Human military doctrine was built on one simple principle: plan for everything, trust nothing, and always assume the worst. Where aliens built single defensive lines, humans built layers upon layers of overlapping coverage. Where aliens used predictable tactics, humans used chaos and deception. Where aliens fought to win battles, humans fought to survive wars. "Admiral," the sensor operator called out, "the lead Void Hunter ship is approaching the outer marker. All stations prepare for combat," Kate ordered. "Show them what aggressive humans can really do." The battle was swift and brutal. Human ships moved like deadly dancers, using tactics the Void Hunters had never encountered. While alien fleets had been consumed in hours, the human defense held for days. But Kate knew they were just buying time. The Void Hunters would adapt and return with more ships. The real question was whether Earth would help the galaxy or let it burn. Dr. Helen Parker was working frantically in her laboratory on Mars. She had developed countermeasures for the Void Hunters decades ago, but the alien governments had refused to listen. Now she was perfecting those weapons for human use only. "Dr. Parker," her assistant said, "we're getting messages from alien scientists begging for access to your anti-Void Hunter research." Helen didn't look up from her work. "Tell them to submit their requests through proper diplomatic channels." But there are no diplomatic channels left. Most alien governments have collapsed. Helen finally stopped working. She looked at her assistant with tired eyes. "Do you know what the Centauri Science Council said when I presented my Void Hunter research 5 years ago?" Her assistant shook his head. "They said human paranoia was not welcome in civilized scientific discourse. They said I was fear-mongering to make humans seem important." Helen's voice grew cold. "Well, now they know how important human fear-mongering really was. As the Void Hunters consumed system after system, the remaining alien populations began to understand the truth. Humanity hadn't been partners in the galaxy. They had been protectors. They had been the shield that stood between civilization and the dark. Now the shield was gone, and the dark was consuming everything. High Chancellor Morden sent one final message to Earth before the Forum Station's communication systems failed completely. "We were wrong. We were wrong about everything. Please, in the name of all that is sacred, help us. We will accept any terms. We will give you anything. Just please, save what's left of our children." President Ryan Hayes read the message in his office. Outside his window, he could see the lights of human cities safe and protected behind the defenses that aliens had once mocked. His response was simple. "The galaxy chose to see us as primitives requiring guidance. You made it clear we were not welcome as equals. We will not return as saviors to those who would not accept us as partners. Humanity's duty is to humanity alone." As alien civilizations fell one by one to the Void Hunters, human ships watched, from the safety of their borders. Children in human schools learned about the Great Withdrawal, where humanity discovered that sometimes walking away was the greatest victory of all. The galaxy had believed they needed to control humanity. In the end, they learned they needed humanity to survive, but by then it was far too late.